Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Hooty Hoo KSU football podcast. This is the big one. This is the one we're waiting for. The matchup against the two contenders in Conference USA, Kennesaw State versus Jax State. That's going to be on ESPNU. It's been flexed to ESPNU at 8 p.m. Kennesaw State is favored by 3 on the road, with the over-under be 54.5. Please like and subscribe. My name is Griffin Nichols. I am your host. We are available at all streaming platforms as far as video. You got TikTok, Twitter, X. You got Facebook. You've got YouTube. Audio podcast is going to be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, you name it, it is there. Please like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review if you could. Give us a follow. And that would be terrific, and we can keep this going. Also, please don't forget about the Etsy store and all the great products that are on there, that any proceeds go directly back to the show. Let's get into it, shall we? So, basically, if we're looking at this, before I go through numbers and stats and all that stuff, let's talk about this. How awesome is it that we are in November and our games are relevant, they are impactful to a number of different things, whether that is a potential playoff berth. What? Outside shot. Not a good one. Outside shot. Conference titles, conference championship locations. I mean, all of those things are there, right? Which bowl game you're going to. I mean, an amazing time to be a Kennesaw State fan, to be a proud owl. Yeah, I mean, let's dive in here. So Jax State, the Chickens, as I like to call them, are arch rival. Definitely a rivalry game. They've had a weird season, if you look at it statistically. So you look at the season, they started against UCF. Week 1, they lost 17-10. Second week, they played Liberty, who's having a rough year. Jax State wins 34-24. They play at Georgia Southern. They lose to Georgia Southern 41-34. The next week, they play maybe homecoming against Murray State and win at home 45-10. Then they go on the road to take on Southern Miss, get blasted 42-25, come back home and beat Sam Houston 29-27. It's not good. But they still win 29-27. The week later, at home, they play Delaware. They win 38-25. At home against Middle Tennessee State, they win 24-21. Middle Tennessee State, they're not having a great year. Finally, last week, they beat UTEP, which was a very close game until the very end, game-winning field goal. You're looking at 30-27. Jax State coming away with the victory. So Jax State has, doing math right now, 6 wins, 3 losses on the season versus Kennesaw State, 7-2. The 2 losses against Wake Forest and Indiana. Now, if we're looking at Jax State, a couple things about this program. Head coach is Charles Kelly. Charles Kelly was a defensive coordinator at Florida State. He was a corners coach, I think, at Georgia Tech, and was on that staff for a while before taking the job over at Jax State. So he is definitely very well in tune with the defensive side of the ball. Defense is excellent for Jax State, but really it all starts and stops with their running game. They are ranked number 4 nationally in rushing offense. Of the nation, of all the teams out there, they rank number 4. They run the ball a ton. Cam Cook is their main playmaker. He leads the country in rushing yards. He has 1,147 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. He has 21 catches for 182 yards in the season. He has had 100-plus yards combined, either rushing and passing or together, however you want to say that, every game this year. So the offense really does go through him. The quarterback, Caden Creel, also a runner. Not the best passer in the world, but also a runner. So passing-wise for a quarterback, he has 706 yards on the season through 9 games, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And then rushing, though, he has 603 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. By the numbers, you're looking at, as I said before, Jax State being ranked 4th nationally in the rushing offense. Total offense is 105th. 99th in Defensively, nationally, they're ranked 99th, giving up in the last 3 games an average of 81 yards on the ground every single week. Jax State Jax State's average this season for scoring is 29.9 points per game. They average 153 yards passing per game and 261 yards rushing per game. So we're going to flip over here for just a second to talk about Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State's defense is ranked 106th in the country, giving up around 144 yards per game. As we know, the defense has been terrific this year, really come up with a lot of big plays, are good against the run for sure. But again, more of a bend but don't break kind of defense, as we've seen again and again this year. You're looking at a lot of touchdown drives that end up being field goals for the opponents of Kennesaw State. So they'll give up some yards, but they get real hard to score on once you get into the red zone, which leads to a lot of field goals, which again caters perfectly onto this offense, with this offense being so explosive and scoring very quickly. So it's exactly what we talked about last year leading into this year of what we wanted to see. It's a good matchup. It's really going to be a close game. I mean, it has everything to say it's going to be a close game. Jax State's defense has given up 21-plus points over the last 3 games. They are on a home winning streak. They've not lost at home this season. So to be a home underdog for Jax State is going to be very motivational for them. I mean, they are protecting their place. So that's a tough one. It's a tough thing to ask for Kennesaw State to go in there and get this win. So what do we think is going to happen? Well, I think it's going to be a little dicey in the beginning. I think that we've got to figure out how that defensive line is going to respond to that offensive line from Jax State. So Kennesaw State's defensive line versus Jax State's offensive line. That's where the first battle is. I think if we go back and we look at what we've seen, there are times when there are big runs given up. Not devastating by any means. Nothing that you're giving up 60-yard touchdown runs and stuff. It's not nothing like that. But I think back to the Middle Tennessee State game, not as much the FIU game, but when you had a quarterback who was capable of running, there were some gashes that were kind of up the middle against this defensive line, and especially on that right-hand side of the defense line. I mean, yeah, on television, the right-hand side. Really, if you're looking at the defense from behind it, it's really the left-hand side that a lot of teams are focusing in on. You've seen Kennesaw State kind of rotate some linebackers over to that spot because it was being exposed by teams, and they're kind of copying each other, so Kennesaw State need to make some adjustments. So that's where it starts, right? It starts with the running. If you can stop the running, if you can make them get into 3rd and long, it's where they don't want to be. They want 3rd and short. They want to be 3rd and 3. They want to be 3rd and 2. I understand every single team does, but at the same time, this team specifically has a difficult time converting on 3rd downs when it's 3rd and long. When it's 3rd and 5 or plus that, or greater, I guess, Jax State has a hard time converting on 3rd downs. So the recipe is pretty straightforward. You got to stop the running game as best as you can. You have to contain the running game, we should say. I don't think you're going to stop it. I think you can contain the rushing game. If you're able to contain the running game and you make them a passing team, you will win that game. They will not beat you passing the ball. What they will do, though, is if they're successful on the run, then they're going to use play action and then throw it over the top, and that's what they will do. This defense for Kennesaw State has been good against that overall. There's been some chunk plays here or there, but overall nothing, again, that's been too devastating. I think that when you look at common opponents, which is dangerous, don't get me wrong, that's a dangerous thing to do when you're comparing teams, but Middle Tennessee State and UTEP are the only 2 comparables that we have, and Kennesaw State really handled both of those teams in the first half, and then kind of, messed around the second half to make the score closer than what it actually was. But Yeah, I mean, I think that Jax State is easy to predict about what to expect. On the flip side, with Kennesaw State on offense, that becomes a little bit more challenging to predict what they're going to do. Jax State's good against the run. They're good against the pass. I mean, their corners are very good. I saw a couple things this week that I reposted on Twitter that was saying, they had the two top corners in the conference, but I just don't know if they've seen this type of offense this year when you look back at those teams that they've played, especially like a Southern Miss or something like that, where they got really beaten pretty well. We'll see how much that defense has been challenged and how good they actually are. Yes, they're going to be motivated coming out of the tunnel. Of course they are. They're trying to protect their home field and their home underdogs. But there's a reason they're home underdogs. And the reason they're home underdogs is that they have been in a lot of close games this year that could have gone either way. Now, the danger with that is that if it gets tight at the end, this team is used to playing in those tight ball games. Kennesaw State is really not. They've not been really uncomfortable until last weekend, where they were really struggling a little bit. Now, that game against UTEP at home was probably closer than it needed to be when they became bowl eligible, but it still was comfortable enough in the end that you're still winning by 10 points when it's all said and done with. It was a little dicey there for a second, but you also had multiple quarterbacks coming in and out. No one can hit the deep ball. That game was just a mess. Last week was different. Last week at New Mexico State on the road was a little dicey just because there was just a lot of mistakes, just a lot of errors that were made that made that game closer than it should have been. I don't know if that's nerves. Again, we talked about last week as far as looking ahead to this game, but your focus, if that's what happened, both of these teams have made it to this spot. They should be absolutely focused on this game because what it indicates for the rest of the season. Whoever wins this game most likely goes to the conference championship, unless something really wild happens. Whoever wins this is going to the conference championship game. Now, whether you play at home or on the road depends on how the rest of your season works out. But you'd have a tiebreaker over the next best team. So basically, if Kennesaw State wins, Jax State then falls to second place, tied with Western Kentucky with one loss. You could afford, not that you want to, you could afford to lose and still have the tiebreaker over Jax State. Jax State, funny enough, plays Western Kentucky next week. So next week's huge for Jax State. So back-to-back weeks for Jax State with conference implications for sure. So we'll see kind of how that shakes out. We got Odom starting at quarterback. Again, let's make good decisions, protect the ball. We need to use our running backs a good bit to open up the deep plays. We need to make sure that we are accurate with our deep throws, that we're not taking unnecessary risk. It's not necessary. Play clean, be better than the other team, execute at a higher level than the other team, and it will take care of itself. I do see this being a close game. I think 28-24 is what the number I keep coming back with. Kennesaw State, 28-24 on the road. But it's going to be close. It's going to be close. I don't think that this is you get up early 28-0 and you let them come back like we've seen in the past. I don't think it's like that. I think that there's answers along the way. Their field goal kicker is really good. I think 16 of 18 this year, where our field goal kicker is much more inconsistent, as many of you know, see Wake Forest. And I hope we don't want it to come down to a field goal battle, basically, because statistically speaking, we probably lose that battle. We want it, if anything else, we would want it to be a lot of scoring because we will outscore them, or get up ahead early and force this team to come back on you, Jax State to come back on you, because they're not going to beat you passing the ball. They still have to run the ball. When you're running the ball, it eats clock up. I don't care how fast you go. So that's really what you need to do, is to get up by 2 touchdowns early and make that team force passes. And that then will lead to interceptions, turnovers, turnover on downs, etc. That's the recipe for success here. You have to survive the first quarter. You can't let this get away from you in the first quarter. The crowd will be loud. They will be engaged. There'll be a lot of pressure there and a lot of nerves on both sides. But you cannot let this game get away from you in the first. You need to put your foot on the pedal, and you need to score as quickly as possible to quiet the crowd. Now you're in a ball game. And if you can get up by 2 scores, you've got a real chance to not only pull away, but to create turnovers, because this team, Jax State, is not capable of scoring a lot of points in a smaller amount of time. They can score points, but it's over a period of time. It's over the whole game, slowly, methodically. So Kennesaw State knows exactly what to expect. Coach Mack had said that the running back for Jax State, Cam Cook, may be the best running back in the country, which is high praise. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but he's a very good running back. So he's the complete package. He can catch it. He's big. He's powerful. He's shifty. He doesn't usually go down with first contact, but it can be done. The defense has been aggressive all year long, has been gang tackling all year long, so keep it up. Get him on the ground. That FIU running back, Holmes, I think, he was a very difficult running back, a very good running back, and he was well contained in that game with very little big runs given up, and the one that was his biggest run of the night was called back for a face mask penalty. So it's there. It's there to take. I'm going 28-24 KSU. Would be amazing. That would be great. Nothing would make me happier than to do the 8th victory cast in a row come Sunday. That would thrill me. So I'm going to pivot now. I'm going to pivot over to the national side of things for just a second, because it's funny. This weekend, unlike last weekend was more of what could have been weekend, right? What could have been these great games if we looked at the preseason rankings and what we thought teams were going to be. Well, it turns out that last weekend was still a little disappointing. This weekend, though, is funny. If you looked at this weekend in the preseason, you've been like, there's a couple games, but nothing jumps out, right? The Texas-Georgia game jumps out, maybe Oklahoma and Bama for namesake. But these games that we have going on tomorrow are a lot bigger than what we would have thought of in the past. So we start off with Pitt versus Notre Dame. Pitt versus Notre Dame is a playoff game. I mean, it really is. If Notre Dame loses that, they're out. If Pitt wins that, they have a real shot to go to the conference championship for the ACC and to potentially go to a playoff berth. Pitt's freshman quarterback may be the best freshman. Oh my goodness, may be the best freshman quarterback in the country right now. So he is good. He is very good. I'm very curious about that game. It doesn't have an impact on the ACC standings, but it is absolutely an elimination game. South Carolina at Texas A&M, what could have been. I'm not going to be blown away by this game by any means. A&M should walk through this game. I read an article that Sellers, their quarterback, is going to sit out the rest of the season because he's going to transfer. I've heard him going to Miami or a few other schools. So I think South Carolina probably gets it handed to them. Wisconsin, Indiana. Let's see what Indiana looks like a week after last week, where it was a much closer game than what they had expected against Penn State. Wisconsin played great last week. I still think Indiana at home is the better team. Obviously, they're a very good team, but Wisconsin is interesting to watch in that game. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Here's one that you would have never thought I would say. South Florida versus Navy. Again, an elimination game, really. South Florida has got to win this game to stay in contention to make a playoff berth. Navy is a very decent team. They're pretty good. So don't sleep on that game. Oklahoma and Bama, everybody would assume it's going to be Bama, but Oklahoma is much better than they were in years past. It's a dangerous game for Bama. Bama continues to just get by these teams. They're winning, right? But they're not dominating like they once did. It's 23-20. Last week against LSU, was it 17-9, something like that? But that's going to be a game to pay attention to. Another one to pay attention to is NC State versus Miami. NC State is this Jekyll and Hyde team. You have no idea what you're going to get with this team. But they have the talent to go into Miami and to win that game. They are capable of that. If that quarterback is on for NC State, it is possible. Miami's a funny team. They really struggle once you get out of October or September, really. They really have a hard time. And it'll be fascinating to see if they can pull it together and beat this NC State team. The weird thing, I was complaining last week because I don't love Miami about Miami being overshadowed by Notre Dame, even though they lost head-to-head. And my point being is that head-to-head matchups have to matter. They have to matter, especially if you have the same record, you play common opponents, etc. It must matter. And my issue with Notre Dame getting the spot in the playoff when the ranking was released is that Miami had the same record, beat them head-to-head, and was like 8 places below them, below Notre Dame, which is insane to me. That just should never happen. However, this week's controversy was Miami's chances of going to the ACC championship game look very slim right now, given the losses that they have in conference. And what they said this week with the playoff show was that Miami may be the selection, the at-large bid from the ACC versus the conference champion, which is wild to me. Wild to me that you would say that. If Georgia Tech were to continue on and to win the ACC with 1 loss, how do you leave that team out? That's ridiculous. You can't leave them out as a conference champion and take the 4th best team in the conference over them because their schedule was more challenging. Based on what? Based on who? Notre Dame? Okay, cool. Florida's a train wreck. Florida State's a train wreck. Those are 2 games Miami has won. They lost to Louisville at home, by the way. It just can't be this hard. If you want to do Miami as an at-large, cool, but you still have to take the conference champion. That just makes sense. And I'm not a Georgia Tech fan either, just to be clear. Keeping elimination games in mind, Virginia versus Duke. Virginia wants to lose. They showed you it last week. They want to lose. Playing at Duke, whose defense is pretty solid, that would really shake some things up in the conference in the ACC for sure. Boy, I like Duke in that game. I think Virginia just is done. I don't know why. I don't know if done is the right word, but it just seems like they just can't handle it, or like the warts are showing up or something. You lose your quarterback last week. How is he? Is he back? Is he at 100%, etc.? Yeah, I like Duke in that game, to be honest with you. Finally, you got Texas at Georgia. Texas loses, they're out. It's really that simple. That'll be 3 losses on the year. That's what I think will happen. I think Texas does lose to Georgia, by the way, but Texas is eliminated for sure. If they lose to Georgia, I think Georgia can actually afford to lose to Texas and still be in the playoffs, but Texas cannot lose a game. And that will get you to the start of our game, the Jax State KSU game at 8 o'clock ESPNU. Let's get that victory, guys. Let's get the victory. Let's keep it going. All right? Like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star. Give me some comments. I'm going to push it out right now. I hope you all have an amazing week and have a great football Saturday. Go Owls, Hooty Hoo. And I will talk to you on Sunday. Have a good one, guys. Bye.